Welcome to Construction Cashflow. In this podcast, we tackle cash flow and construction challenges head on. Join us weekly as we interview industry experts, share stories of triumph, and uncover best practices for positive change. If you enjoy the show, please give us a rating and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Just got a phone call from the Sun newspaper and they're saying they're at the gate of the site, and they said that you guys have just killed somebody on site, and that you're completely at fault. How do you respond? Do you understand what it is that is the process of how we operate as a business in order to protect and to look after health and safety? Or are you just going through the motions in terms of, yeah, it's just a toolbox talk, just sign it here, it's the induction, have you got the induction? Yeah, have you got your sets? Okay, you're good to go. Come on over here, it's grid line 12, it's a load of plasterboard needs to be put there, let's get going. What I like to call the business of safety needs to be included in the whole business as an operation. As an owner of a business, you shouldn't just be looking at the bottom line of profit and loss. You can implement a business of safety in a smart way that makes you money and actually increases your profit. There's tips and techniques and tools there that people, if they embrace health and safety, it can actually benefit the company by the obvious one, having a reputation for being a safe company that actually delivers a quality product is, in our estimation, one of the highest attributes you could be given as a company in terms of winning more work and in terms of getting your name out there. And so we're always encouraging employers to think of the business of safety as part of your overall business plan within executing a successful company that has a sustainable approach for the future, that's not just all about quality and delivery, but it's also about the delivery of safety within that product. Don't just concentrate on winning projects and having the big marketing guys come out and waving the flag and saying we're a great company, we won this massive contract. Win the contract on the basis of everything and use safety as part of that to promote your business. Create a situation where you have brand safety as a value within your organization. Be the one that can say, yeah, we cost an extra bit more, but look at what we can achieve on your projects. If you want to use somebody at a lesser value and undercut us, you're undercutting us based on safety. But in our experience, clients will pay the extra percentage if they know that they're going to have a particular company that has a reputation for safety. Use safety as a tool to benefit the success of your business and the profitability of the success of your business, and don't look at it as if it's a direct cost that's reducing your profit.
In this episode, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Gavin Coyle. Gavin is a renowned expert in evolving health and safety culture for business growth. With over 25 years of industry experience, Gavin is the founder and CEO of a global health and safety practice. As a sought-after speaker, mentor, and author of the book Workplace Safety on a Budget, he'll show you how to prioritise worker well-being while scaling your business. Get ready to unlock affordable solutions for workplace safety, protect your employees, and safeguard your bottom line. Join us now as we dive into practical strategies with Gavin Coyle. Hi Gavin, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing today?
Stu, I'm doing great, and thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you today.
You're welcome. So, Gavin, tell us about your story on how you got to where you are now.
Got into the construction industry at a very young age. I was about 17, having left school. And at the time, a lot of American companies, global pharmaceutical and the likes of Intel and Hewlett Packard were moving into Ireland in a big way and moving into Europe basically and using Ireland as a base. So at the time, there wasn't such a thing as a full-time health and safety person on construction projects in Ireland. It was a kind of a new phenomenon. There was health and safety framework, legal frameworks in place, but there was no requirement to have a full-time health and safety presence. These American companies were insisting if the job was to be built at the scale it was being built, that a full-time health and safety resource needed to be on the project. So came out of school, was on the tools, and was told basically, look, you must be more educated because you just basically come out of school. And there's a lot of paperwork involved with this. You're going to a meeting in the afternoon, so knew nothing about what I was getting involved in, but instantly took a liking to the whole concept of, well, you're here to prevent accidents and you're here to help the project by making sure that nobody gets seriously hurt. So that concept alone grabbed me straight away. And as well as that, it was new and it was an opportunity to maybe establish a career where I didn't really have any career guidance. Going into school, health and safety wouldn't have been regarded as a career. And even today, if you talk to some people, they'll tell you, how come nobody told me about health and safety when I was in school, looking to go into college? Unfortunately, within the first 2 years, I had some major trauma. I had a brother of mine drowned along with 2 other guys, just throwing a football to each other, friends and schoolmates, and a freak wave came in and took them out to sea. So the 3 guys drowned. And in around the same time, I had a young guy on a major project. It was a Four Seasons hotel in Dublin was being built at the time. And the young guy was working for the contractor that I was working for. And I would have inducted him, would have done toolbox talks and stuff like that. I wasn't on the job full time, but I happened to be on the job on the day. And I got a fairly loud bang on the cabin door to say there was a man down. And when we went into the area where the young lad had been looking for lights, ironically, where there was no lights, he tripped over a scaffold bar and had fallen headfirst into a hole. And so it was complete carnage. We got him into the ambulance, and then it was just myself and himself in the ambulance along with the paramedics, and it was pretty gruesome, but he died of his injuries about 2 days later. And so pretty quick I had to sort of gear up and say, look, this is either for you or it's not for you. And I suppose from a personal point of view, the tragedy of losing a brother, and then from a sort of a career impact, they really shaped my empathy and my focus on concentrating on health and safety as a career.
It's a tragic story about your brother and seeing the guy on site. That must have really changed your life in a way. How did you find going into the health and safety? Do you find that's what's driving your passion from those events? How has that changed you as a person as well?
Oh, definitely. I could see it from the family side. So I can see I remember members of the contracting company that I worked with having to go and sit with family members of the young guy that died, and sort of, directors having to sit down and talk to the parents and kind of explain to them, by the way, we're sorry we let you down by not protecting your son. It's a very, it's not a humble experience. It's more of a, I don't know, like, you need to be very careful. It can be very traumatic. Like the site manager that was on that project at the time never recovered from that particular event, and he moved away from moved away from Ireland, went to Australia, and I had kept in touch with him for a good few years, but I know personally he just never got over it, and so it's kind of if health and safety, if you think health and safety is for you, it's unfortunately it's a part of the professional industry that we're in, and I suppose if you talk to paramedics and nurses and doctors, there has to be something in you that concentrates on the higher purpose. Okay, we've had this massive trauma, but how do we pull together here, and how do we galvanize ourselves, and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again, and how do we comfort those that are in need of comfort right now in terms of helping them get through this sort of horrific event. And what I found, and I've dealt with investigating fatalities since, not that they were directly impacted to me, but I may have been asked to come in and do an investigation, an aftermath, if you like, is that I found there's a great big bounce of enthusiasm and will and want to do the right thing, and everybody fully focused. And that, in my experience, usually lasts about 6 to 8 months, and then it starts to sort of slowly creep back to the norm of, well, here's where we were pre fatality. And that's an interesting concept to me, is that how people couldn't keep or maintain those levels of motivation. Not saying that people were doing things recklessly, but you could see that there wasn't a whole, oh, hold on a minute, you can't do that, guys, come on, let's now think about it. We've had this situation with this young person or whatever. Those conversations kind of stopped, and it was kind of like, I'll just crack on and do my own thing. And yeah, I'll do the toolbox talks, and I'll sign off on the safe work procedures and all the rest of it. But the human interaction of working together collaboratively and working together as a team from a health and safety perspective, that dissipated after a period of time. And that's a disappointment to see, but I think it's just human nature.
Is there a way we can keep that enthusiasm going? It's interesting that you should bring this point up, because I find from a construction cash flow perspective, I'm very interested in what happens, what the repercussions are for families. So if a subcontractor doesn't get paid, his business, if he goes out of business, that affects his wife, his children, his community, and probably 10 times more so with health and safety. So it's how do you keep that other side of the coin? So as you say, there's one side of the coin which is the toolbox talks and doing things right, being organised on site, but to get that motivation for every individual, how could you keep that in mind? The devastating effect that if something does go wrong, somebody's got to go and talk to the family, and what that changes their lives completely, doesn't it? If there's a bad injury to a loved one, a husband, a wife on site, then that changes everything. And it's a lot of training is focused on how we organise ourselves on site. But what about that other side of it, the so-called kind of human side of it? I mean, how much of that do you kind of put across in your training and your book and your approach?
Yeah, we actually do a exercise with owners of businesses in the construction industry. It's a very useful exercise where we bring in key people within the organization. They don't need to be directors, they could be supervisors, managers, charge and foremen, but people that have a level of control of stuff that's either going on the ground or in the overall picture of the company. And it's a very interesting exercise to go through. I would suggest, even if you don't use someone like yourselves, that you do it yourselves, but get somebody that's independent, that doesn't have any bias in the system. And you basically sit down with individuals in a confidential environment, and you quiz them like as if you would quiz them as if there was a fatality just after happening, literally within the last 4 or 5 hours. And you don't tell them that you're going to have this conversation, but you tell them that you're going to have a scenario-based discussion with them. We call it an interview, for want of a better expression. It is an interview. But it's amazing to see people's responses when you challenge them and you say things like, we've just got a phone call from the Sun newspaper, and they're saying they're at the gate of the site, and they said that you guys have just killed somebody on site, and that you're completely at fault. How do you respond? And all levels of the organisation, different answers coming back. I'll tell them to contact the MD. I'll tell them to contact the health and safety guy. It's chaos. It's chaos within a controlled environment that we've created by having the conversation. And it's not just that. There's other stuff that we go on, and once we give us the answer, we sort of then say, okay, you tell us to contact the safety officer. What do you think the safety officer is going to say? And now you're starting to see, do you understand what it is that is the process of how we operate as a business in order to protect and to look after health and safety? Or are you just going through the motions in terms of, yeah, it's just a toolbox talk, just sign it here, yeah, it's the induction, have you got any induction? Yeah, have you got your sets? Okay, you're good to go. Come on over here, it's grid line 12 point whatever, and it's a load of plasterboard needs to be put there, let's get going. That's only part of the operation. What I like to call the business of safety needs to be included in the whole business as an operation, as an owner of a business. You shouldn't just be looking at the bottom line of profit and loss. You can implement the business of safety in a smart way that makes you money and actually increases your profit, because there's tips and techniques and tools there that people, if they embrace health and safety, it can actually benefit the company by the obvious one, having a reputation for being a safe company that actually delivers a quality product is, in our estimation, one of the highest attributes you could be given as a company in terms of winning more work and in terms of getting your name out there. And so we're always encouraging employers to think of the business of safety as part of your overall business plan within executing a successful company that has a sustainable approach for the future. That's not just all about quality and delivery, but it's also about the delivery of safety within that product.
That makes total sense to make it. I like what you say, the business of health and safety, that becomes an integral part of the strategy. Actually, just going back to the exercise that you explained a few moments ago, actually, when I was sitting listening to you describe that scenario, I was actually going cold. I was feeling that I'm never going to forget this conversation ever. I just killed, the sun's just turned up at the gate and I've just killed a guy. And it's like, oh my God, do you know what, Gavin? I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. So I'm sure you've influenced quite a few listeners already into taking health and safety seriously. But it goes back to that feeling you must have felt losing a brother, and that scenario with the guy on site is that it goes deeper than systems or words. It's that feeling. It's that right into your subconscious, and I think that's what that scenario does. It did for me. So.
I think. I see people using, and there is a good. We've used people in the past that have had severe traumatic injuries, near fatal events on business sites, and then they've been brought back into the workplace to meet other companies and to talk about their experiences to other construction workers. That has a place, and I agree that has a place. But it doesn't create a sustainable long-term approach towards preventing accidents and incidents in the place. Like, I've seen guys visibly crying listening to guys' stories, and they are horrific. But it's just a moment in time. what we're trying, what I'd like to see is momentum. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Premiership football team or a construction company, you're always looking for momentum. And sometimes we maybe take our eye off the ball when we do have momentum, when we don't recognize that we actually have something that's moving like a train, and it's all the processes are in place, the systems are in place, the work is coming in, people know their places within the organization, and people are moving in the same sort of volume of effort. And health and safety is a key integral part of that effort. And sometimes companies get it right and they don't realize that they're actually, they have this machine that is actually well oiled, and maybe they lose that momentum by not having a sort of a helicopter view of, okay, this is working really well. Like, how do we maintain this on an ongoing basis? And what are the key aspects that are actually driving the momentum here that we have? And I don't think people or companies do enough to monitor that on an ongoing basis, because that's all we want to know really is, do we have a job that's sustainable, that's going to feed my family and that's going to keep me going? Because obviously money is the driver for everybody here. Let's call a spade a spade. Without the money, we don't have a job, and we don't have a career, and we don't have a family protection mechanism. So everything feeds into safety in that regard. And what we're trying to say is, don't just concentrate on winning projects and having the big marketing guys come out and waving the flag and saying, we're a great company, we won this massive contract. Win the contract on the basis of everything, and use safety as part of that to promote your business, and create a situation where you have brand safety as a value within your organization, because you understand the value of winning more projects with major clients. And we would suggest that you would actually increase the value or dollar value of your projects, and be the one that can say, yeah, we cost an extra bit more, but look at what we can achieve on your projects. If you want to use somebody at a lesser value and undercut us, you're undercutting us based on safety, because we have put our extra bit into our company to achieve what we've achieved, and we have the right people, so we pay them extra. So we give them extra training, we give them great supervision, the guys turn up on their job, their vans, their jeeps, everything is immaculate. So the whole sort of perception of the company is, do you know what? I want to work with a Rolls-Royce company. I don't want to pay through the nose for it. So there is a level that clients will go to. But in our experience, clients will pay the extra percentage if they know that they're going to have a particular company that has a reputation for safety.
What type of companies do you think are taking up that challenge to become branded as a safety company and really instill it in their values?
What we tend to see, or what I've, from my experience, is companies that actually have a niche solution or a niche product or a niche service. So it's kind of they're very specialized. So they don't tend to want to be challenged on anything that they have, because they're specialists in their own right. And so if somebody says something about safety, well, we better box that off, because we don't want to be, we're going around telling everybody, you can go around the whole world, but you're only going to find me and maybe 2 or 3 other companies that can actually do this job. So safety becomes a very integral part of their business plan, because they don't want any part of their business plan torn to shreds, because they're saying that they're probably one of very few companies that can actually deliver that specialist service. So they tended to be the ones that we've seen sort of come to the forefront. Whereas, if there's thousands of roofing companies, there's a lot more sort of saturation in that, and it takes you probably a little bit longer period of time to prove that you are actually above and beyond better in terms of health and safety than others. But that's just unfortunately, that's just a sort of a longer stretch of a road that you need to achieve.
So if it was a roofing company or a brickwork company, that, it's quite a saturated market, there's lots of roofers, lots of bricklayers, what would you say to them in terms of how they could stand themselves out from the crowd by taking on kind of a brand safety for their business? Is there something that would encourage them to pick that up so they could obviously operate a much more a safer business, but also be more attractive to a client?
I think the starting point for every company, regardless of who you are, what trade you have, or where you are within the industry, the number one starting point is maybe hit the reset button and have a time and a moment set aside to say, look, I'm going to bring everybody together within the company, and we're going to have an open discussion about health and safety within the company, and we're going to have a very hard-hitting face-to-face discussion about what's working in terms of health and safety and what's not working in health and safety, and who's sort of like, anyone that's got their strong opinions to bring them to that table, and maybe even get somebody to facilitate that conversation. That's fine. You can go and get plenty of health and safety professionals that would sit in and facilitate that, or business advisors, but definitely have that conversation as an open discussion and put in some sort of key goals and key indicators that people have said within that meeting, so that you said and we've listened, and then here's how we've responded, and then give that a period of time to show them that you're actually serious about what they asked for. So it could be, look, you keep buying cheap gloves, why don't you pay the extra bit and buy a stronger pair of gloves, and we won't have to change them as much, or whatever. It could be something. Don't think it's menial, because it's important to them, and it's important that you listen to them. And really what I'm trying to get to is I'm going back to basics, and go back to a basic foundation sort of discussion, which people should be having anyway, but they're not. And then you start seeing, okay, who's coming to the table with regards to health and safety, and who's being passive or doesn't really want to get motivated about having a safe company. Then you're going to have the hard questions about what type of company, what type of individuals do you want to employ that have the same values as you as a company. That's the hard one, because you'll have legacy employment issues where people have been just employed and they're not willing to make the change to go the extra mile and sort of join this health and safety movement, if you like. And that's the bit that we found with employers, that obviously they found it hard to say to people, look, we're going to have to let you go here if you're not going to sort of, come and join the whole momentum that we're trying to achieve here. Because really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a safe environment, a safe workplace, safe employees, safe projects. And I know that you can do the job, but you have been the person that have been pulled up most on not wearing your hard hats, not wearing your PPE, not working on the scaffold properly, not working on a ladder properly, or whatever it is. And we just can't keep doing it. And, the clients are very aware of who's on the projects these days. It's no longer the situation where the client has kind of is up in a sort of a glass box. They're on the ground a lot more than they were ever. And I think your viewers or your listeners will actually concur with that. They're a lot more in tune with what's happening on the ground these days than they ever were. And they see the individuals and the characters that are, happy-go-lucky but don't really care. And they also see the guys that are happy-go-lucky but also very professional in how they apply themselves. And it's the implied version of people's attitude towards health and safety that comes across to the clients, because the clients mightn't say anything, but as they're walking through and they see the guy that's totally on it in terms of how he does his job and how he does it safely, that actual buzz, if you like, feeds back into the client, and the client will remember that in the next tender meetings or in the next meetings, whatever that's. And actually things actually start to become easy when you're working with really good people, and the price is right, the people are right, and the conditions are right. Construction jobs are brilliant to work on. They're, you know, the buzz and the enjoyment that you get out of them is second to none. And from a safety perspective, when I used to do a lot more inspections than I do now, I used to get a great buzz off going on to projects and doing maybe audits and stuff like that, where you were feeding off the enthusiasm of the guys that were doing the job, because they knew, and you didn't have to have a discussion about it, but they knew they were on a safe job, and they knew they were making good money, and they knew that the client was happy, and there was no drama. The drama tends to appear for us when the job is not pre-planned correctly, and safety is part of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's palpable when you're on a site that's really attuned and committed to health and safety. The whole site feels different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how that is, and you know that people are committed to their health and safety rather than compelled to do it. I think that's a big difference, isn't it? And
yeah,
you know, main contractors see that, because a lot of particularly the larger main contractors are pretty well committed to health and safety, far more than they used to be. And you know, they can see if a guy is compelled or committed, can't they?
They can, yeah. And like, it's back to the word momentum again. And momentum only comes from a collaboration of people working together with the same vision. And unfortunately, maybe on the principal contractor roles, they don't do enough with regards to pre-start workshops and pre-start or pre-project workshops, where they pull everybody together and say, look guys, the last job was a bit of a mess. We're going to fix things. This job is going to be better. Tell us what you think, how we can do better from a principal contractor point of view. And we'll also explain to you where we felt things were working against us on the last project. Whether you were on the last project or not, let's have an open forum, and let's kind of come together with a charter, if you like, of we're all fully committed and this is the values of the project, and let's all stick to that. And if we all stick to that, we'll all reap the rewards of that as well. And they don't have to be donuts or breakfast rolls on a Friday for everybody, but you know, it should be just a good sense of, you know what, I'll jump out of bed in the morning and I love going to that job.
So you've written a book, Gavin, on health and safety. Tell us a bit more about the book, who it's kind of aimed at, and who should be reading it, and what kind of problem did you have in mind that it gets over? You know, I understand it's health and safety, but you know, it's getting people into health and safety, isn't it?
Well, it's a book for everybody. It's on Amazon. It's Workplace Safety on a Budget, and my main focus on it was our core business provides safety contractors into the oil and gas, power generation, wind energy, utilities business, and it's very premium type model, and we get a lot of communications from companies, small to medium enterprises, looking for help with health and safety. But the cost of our guys to help out these smaller guys, it's not something that they would have a budget for. And so it was gnawing at me for a long time that you had to say no to a lot. Yeah, you'd give them some sort of advice over the phone and stuff like that, but you were leaving out a large chunk of the industry because we had created a kind of our own niche, if you like, in the markets that we were operating in. So I wrote this book with a view that, you know, anybody can have a high standard of health and safety, regardless of whether you're small, medium or large, and here's how you can do it. So all of my experiences and my sort of life experiences within health and safety and within predominantly in the construction industry is in the book, and then all these tips and tools and techniques of how to cut back on spending of health and safety, but also obviously then still allow more money in the kitty for profit and moving your company forward, but also having a sort of a kind of a clear strategy for your business for health and safety. So, you know, I don't want anyone to have an excuse that there's an elitism or a class distinction between those who can spend millions on health and safety and those who can't. And I think that's what's happened with health and safety over the last 20 years, is that there's been this sort of a bridge where, well, you know, fine for you to go and buy a brand new Caterpillar, but I have to stick with my, you know, Massey Ferguson here with a front loader. You know, there's ways and means about how you can be smart, and back to the business of safety. But there's ways and means about how you can be smart to save money. And if you're a large multinational organization, maybe you want to look at the book and open it and say, do you know what, maybe we're spending way too much on safety, and we could cut back on it, and we could spend that money on other things, like paying probably a higher salary to certain people who we know can hit the ground running and are really good at what they do. I think people should be thinking about that and repurposing money for the right reasons into the right areas, and not just saying, right, you know what, if anyone asks us, are we a safe company, we can tell them we spend X amount, 100,000 on health and safety, or whatever million on safety a year, so we must be doing something right. That's not necessarily the it's not the right answer, and we all know that. So it's a book for everybody, and if somebody's wanting to go into a career in health and safety, it's a brilliant career. There's a massive shortage of health and safety people globally, as anyone will tell you. There's more work than there is health and safety people. We know that. So if someone was thinking about getting into health and safety, or was a health and safety professional, the book also will help them in their day-to-day operations.
Well, you received a certificate, I noticed, was the Safety and Health Asia. Tell us a bit more about that.
I did. You've been doing your research. The Safety and Health Asia is a fantastic organisation that is promoting health and safety. It's actually one of the guys is from the UK, but based in Asia, and it was an influencer certificate, basically just to say that I had an impact in terms of the health and safety industry, and they just wanted to recognise that. We had done some work in the Middle East in the past, and worked on some major projects, so it was nice to get the recognition.
Interesting story. I used to outsource some of our estimating work, project management work, to an office in Hyderabad in India, and used to visit there a couple of times a year, and looking around the construction sites, the health and safety, we thought ours was bad. No edge protection, 10 stories up and all of that sort of thing, and you cringe walking past. So any influence in the Middle East, in India, those places wouldn't go amiss. No,
well, but look, there is socio-economic conditions that do have an influence. Let's not, we're all aware of that. But like, you should have a standard, and this is a question that I get asked quite a good bit. It's like, if I'm based in America, or how do I, if I go into another region, I'm kind of concerned about how I can adapt to the local regulatory environment and stuff like that. It's not so much about that. It's about, what's your standard? What's your international standard for health and safety? So ISO standards, they're one of the benchmarks, and in the Middle East, they're highly regarded. But also OSHA is held within high esteem in terms of a standard that can travel across the globe. So people shouldn't be concerned about trying to fit into the local regulatory environment. Once you've built your culture and your standard, and you have this model that is a powerhouse, and health and safety is on point, you can travel anywhere in the world with your business and deliver that without having to make too many significant changes going into different countries. Yeah, some forms might be different and might have different definitions, but that's something that can be easily solved. I'm passionate about health and safety, but I'm also passionate about businesses surviving and being successful as their own standalone identity. And I think that's what I want to get across with your listeners today, is that use safety as a tool to benefit the success of your business and the profitability of the success of your business. And don't look at it as if it's a direct cost that's reducing your profit. There's smart and very effective ways to make you look better as a business, that you're not just a logo, and that you'll win more business, because you'll have a higher reputation once you solve the health and safety side of things. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a whole team running around the place to focus on this. These are simple things that you can do within the business that will raise the profile of your business at a higher level than your competitors.
No, that's a great message, Gavin. And for anyone listening, go out and get Gavin's book, and you can get it on Amazon. And particularly if you're a small business or a tradesman that you've now found you've got a business and you're concerned about building a culture of health and safety, get in touch with Gavin, buy his book on Amazon. Where else could people get in touch with you, Gavin? So
we set up a website about 2 years ago, gavin-coyle.com, and Coyle is Coyle, and that website is pretty much on the same mantra as the book, which is let's provide people with free safety courses that they can do. That's an instant hit that gives them information. Let's provide them with budget courses that are okay. They're not competency-based courses, but they give the supervisors and management team and anyone else that wants to learn sort of instant hit health and safety information that they don't need to be spending a whole day or 2 days or 3 days in a course. Yes, there is competency-based courses that need to be done, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce all the barriers so that it creates access for people to go to a website, download toolkits and templates and forms for free, to get information for free, and to get courses for pretty much next to nothing. I think it's $29.99. Most of the courses that are there. And if anyone has any suggestions of courses that like us to add, we go ahead and we build the courses. We put the courses up online then for people to get access to, so that we create this whole culture of let's work together, share together, and let's make a safety accessible to everybody.
That's what it's all about. So thanks so much, Gavin. And before you go, have you got a time for a quick fire round?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, as long as it's not
quick fire round. It's only motivational and inspirational. You can pass on any question you like, or phone a friend, or go 50-50. But so the first question, and I do this with all the guests, it's on every show, so hopefully it won't be too painful. So first question for you is, how do you start your day?
I go to the gym, and that's how I start my day. Is kind of I don't really look at emails or get involved with any sort of communication on a business perspective until my head is clear.
When are you most productive?
I would suggest that I'm productive all day, every day until I go to sleep, because I have a scenario within my lifestyle that is anything I'm doing, I'm in the moment of, and I'm present, and so I'm focused on what I'm doing at that time rather than sort of dealing with what might be.
What's something new happening in your life right now?
What is something new happening in my life right now? I don't know. I'm getting old.
That's new every day, isn't it? I go along with that one. What does adventure look like to you?
Adventure looks like having fun with your family and your friends, and just loving life as it is, and just not taking things too seriously. I know that sounds sort of ironic coming from a health and safety per person, but we're here to live a good life, and it's a short life.
What thing would you love to do that might surprise your friends and family?
I wouldn't mind going back and being a DJ. Maybe it might be something completely left field from where I am. I like music, so.
Name a challenge you overcame that changed your life.
Definitely the loss of your brother, or any loss of a sibling, obviously, for anybody in a traumatic environment where I've often had this discussion with people, is it better to lose someone on a longevity scale where they're sick and it's going to take maybe 6 months or a year, or is it better just, okay, it's not better in any scenario, but is it easier to lose someone and just to have it an instant and it's gone. Definitely, most of the conversations, all the conversations have been, it's better to have the time to say goodbye, rather than the person being stripped completely from you without any notice. So, for anybody listening, obviously, value the people around you, have the conversations with the people, and don't leave any regrets behind you.
Who or what inspires and motivates you?
That would have changed throughout my career, but I would have to put it down to my mother, who's since passed, and my wife, both female influencers within me as a person and me as the professional. And I definitely think I've taken a lot of their knowledge and their experience and their guidance and implemented it into my own sort of mindset.
What does success mean to you?
Success means that I have a situation where I don't necessarily have to depend on money, and number two, that I enjoy the life that I have, both professionally and personally.
What advice would you give to your young self?
Wow. It's a good question. I would suggest to spend more time on the health side of things. As you when you're young, you're Teflon, and you're taking on the world, but you're not really thinking about the impact on yourself physically and mentally. And I think that I see a lot of young people today, and they are actually putting a lot of time and effort into keeping themselves healthy. But I also see that there's a major gap between those that are sort of maybe overdoing it, and then there's people that are actually doing nothing. So there is a happy medium that you should be able to get, and I didn't have the happy medium. I just ran at 1,000 miles a minute and never thought about the health impacts. Not that I have any residual, thank God, issues from it, but probably should have spent more time on the health.
Well, thanks so much, Gavin. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I know I've taken a lot away from it, so thank you so much.
I'm happy to send a few copies of the book as well for your listeners, Stu. If you want to give out a few copies for free to people, just to validate their listenership.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely will do.
Listening to
Cheers, Gavin.
Cashflow.
Thanks, Stu. Take care, pal.
Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so you never miss an episode. And remember, the faster cash flows, the faster wealth grows. Give us a rating and review.